Sorry. So this has been a great experience for each one of us as we all are here. I can tell by the numbers, by the faces, that we will really miss this once it's done. But here we have Dr. Mandal with us, who is going to summarize all the sessions we have had so far so that we can make sense of it and practically use it in our classrooms to create happier classrooms, ultimately trickling down to happier campuses and a happier community. Because this is not just ideologies and visions, but also something practical that we would like to implement, as this is what aligns with Dr. Rekhi's vision. So, moving on, before we start, I would like to formally introduce Dr. Mandal. He is a cognitive neuropsychologist serving as the distinguished visiting professor at IIT Kharagpur. He specializes in the areas of neuropsychology and cognitive sciences. His research interest areas include hemispheric lateralization and effective architecture of the brain. He has been mentioned in several books and over 100 research papers in international and Indian journals of high repute. More recently, he has switched to positive psychology and is making great waves there as well. He completed his postdoctoral research at the University of Delaware as a Fulbright Fellow from 1986 to 1987. He's also studied at the University of Waterloo as an International Scientific Exchange awardee and as an Indo-Canadian Shastri Fellow. I can go on and on, but I think in the interest of time, I will not be able to list all his achievements. And I would now like for Sir to please begin.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ria. It's a pleasure talking to all of you. Now, first, let me share my slide. And let me see whether everybody can see it or not. Just wanted a confirmation whether everybody can see and listen to me clearly.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
yes, sir.
Going just to see if it's spread out through her body. Hopefully not.
Uh, I didn't follow actually. Is that okay? Everybody can see it?
Yes, sir, we can begin.
Okay. Okay. So, good morning and good evening to all of you. I have a daunting task with Rekhi ji or Dr. Rekhi has asked me to do is to give a summary view of what all we have done in last couple of months uh, uh, as a webinar series run primarily by CGU, Claremont Graduate University, with Rekhi Foundation for the Science of Happiness. Well, for the past 7 or 8 years, what Dr. Ria has just mentioned, I have been into the game trying to understand all through my life. I spent uh, in the area of cognitive neuropsychology, primarily focusing on psychiatric patients, but then uh, switched to the other side of it. And there is a reason behind it, which I'll explain while I'll be talking to you about all these things. Anyway, without losing much time, because we would like to leave some time for discussion as well, let me tell you what precisely I'm going to do. I'll first tell you that what is the purpose of doing this kind of summary? Is it uh, just a revisit of what we have already spoken? Or what is the fundamental reason behind why we intend to do this? It's primarily, honestly speaking, is primarily to understand the point of view uh, from the kind of science we have been trying to understand, which is science of happiness, and from the perspective of flourishing, what CGU has been promoting with particular interest in the area of organizational effectiveness. So the basic idea behind is to see if my slides are moving or not. Yeah, the series had actually 8 talks. Of course, the captain of the team is Stuart Donaldson. He spoke about Parma plus 4. Then, of course, I talked about science of happiness. And then Saida Smithy about the power of positive emotions and love. Kendall Brown, of course, talked a beautiful area, about a beautiful area, The Power of Purpose, based on Viktor Frankl's work. Then Jamie Sapiro on Leader Follower Vitality, Jen Nakmara on Flow, and Matt Dubin also about flow, two different approaches. So I termed them as Flow 1.0 and Flow 2.0. And finally, I just had a word with Jennifer. She talked about psychological capital. So these are the eight different talks we had in the past couple of months. Now, why I'm interested is not me, of course. I've been told to do that, so I've been doing it, and it was also my uh, personal viewpoint that we must be able to summarize what we have been listening, trying to learn from CGU. The primary idea was to learn. Primary idea is not to be a critic of what has been said, told, or what is that is percolated as a message. So the first idea was to idea stitch these two works. The idea stitching means, oh, we gather a lot of information over a period of time, and unless the input comes in formation, it cannot be information. And if the information is not processed, it can't be knowledge. And if the knowledge cannot be utilized, it cannot be an experience. Therefore, it's always important for all of us to idea stitch all these talks and try to find out what is that we have learned, because our primary purpose was to learn. And of course, I summarize the viewpoints on positive psychology. The second purpose was, as we had just talked about, to develop an integrated program for teaching, research, training, and outreach on positive psychology. Now, in Rekhi Foundation, of course, we talk a little more about the science of happiness, and the talks that we got is little more towards the science of flourishing. I'll try to understand these two notions slightly differently at the end of my talk, but at the moment, the idea is to develop some kind of togetherness in these concepts in teaching, research, training, and outreach. And finally, to translate these lessons into practice, because uh, the basic idea behind all these researches is to understand the process. And if the process does not culminate into some kind of practice, then it's useless otherwise. So science can be useful only when they become deliverable. Therefore, the idea is to create a thriving and a well-being centered communities. That is, we learn the lessons for ourselves, we percolate it down to students, and from there to campuses, and from there to communities. And that's what is the greater vision that we all have.
So
So
your
with this,
voice is a little faint.
voice is little faint.
Yeah, much better now. Much
Much
better.
better. Okay. So as of now, whatever I have said is very clear, I guess, or should I repeat?
No, it was clear. It's just better now.
Okay. Okay. So idea is that we have certain purposes, and the purposes are clearly defined here. With this notion, I would like to tell you that how the positive psychology has begun, because many of us do not actually belong to positive psychology. Of course, some of us may not be from the field of psychology as well. So therefore, it is very important for all of us to understand that whether positive psychology has started from Martin Seligman, who is considered to be the father of positive psychology, or there were some ideas beforehand as well. The purpose behind talking to you with this slide is to tell you that we all know there is a tectonic shift in psychology from ill-being to well-being. And this is my 45th year of teaching, as I always say, and roughly 40 years I spent on ill-being. I mean, if a little less maybe, but roughly 40 years, 4 decades I spent on ill-being, but switched to last 5-6 years on well-being, and it's a shift. And why this shift has come to my mind, let me tell you a personal story as of it, that the neurosciences researches that we have been doing over past several decades have given us this viewpoint,
that our brain is built to keep us safe, not to make us happy. That's for sure. I mean, with a lot of confidence, I can tell you because I consulted thousands and thousands literature about it. Our brain, if it is built for the last 2 billion years with the fundamental viewpoint of survival, fight and flight, and if we fail to make it, we freeze. The idea is to keep ourselves safe, not for happiness. Therefore, it's important for us to understand that if our ill-being is or the negativities is our part of the system, which is innate system, it's important for us to understand how we can nurture the other side of it. That is from deficiency to efficiency, ill-being to well-being. That is one reason we would like to discuss more about positive psychology because it needs to be nurtured. It has not been hardwired with us. It has not come to us just like that. So it's very important to survive effectively that we understand and nurture happiness, flourishing, well-being as a concept. That's number one. The number two concept is that the clinical psychological perspective and the positive psychological perspective, a lot of people have a tendency to compare them or understand them whether they are compatible or not, because a lot of criticisms are coming for positive psychology. Now, these two fields of psychology, neither they are compatible nor they are comparable. They are complementary to each other. This understanding is very important because if we do not develop that understanding in terms of complementarity, probably we'll continue to compare each other and try to see whether we are compatible to each other or not. Therefore, it's important for us to understand what is positive psychology and how it has actually grown. If you see, I mean, the new science of happiness emerged. I had the opportunity to sit in the same building in Harvard University, the William James building, where I had some glimpses about the work of William James as well. In fact, in 1880s, 90s, he talked about subjective well-being or subjective experience of thriving. I'll not go into great detail of the history that may not be interest of the subject people. So at that point of time, we also had a concept of subjective experience of thriving. Then, of course, Abraham Maslow came with the idea of self-actualization, with the idea of need hierarchy theory. There also he talked about self-actualization, and before he died, he also talked about transcendence. So transcendence, he could not do much about it, but he always talked about need for growth, and that's about close to 1940s. He died in 1940s, but before that, he developed this theory of need hierarchy. But then a host of people came into the field, and most of them actually came with the idea of subjective well-being as a concept in 1980s, 1990s. In fact, 1985 to 1995, all these works were taken forward. Like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi on flow and the optimal experience in life and how that is very meaningful. And by optimality, he talked about the optimal experience, the temporality, the synchronicity, the automaticity. A lot of concepts have come in the idea of flow. Then, of course, Edward Diner was also there. He talked about subjective well-being and quality of life. So he talked about how frequent experiences of positive thoughts and infrequent experiences of negative thought and overall understanding about life gives us a quality of life. Then, of course, Peterson came, and Peterson also talked about character strengths and virtues. He came up with 24 universal virtues and character strengths in human being. He did not talk about the cross-cultural differences. He came about 6 fundamental character strengths, which include humility, which include transcendence, which include meaningfulness. Such concepts he came up and talked about 24 character strengths. And then, of course, in 1998 in APA conference, Martin Peter Seligman started introducing the concept of positive psychology or meaningful life with his model of PARMA. Now, I'll not go into the great detail of PARMA because everybody knows probably PARMA as a model. I'll rather start with how Donaldson, Dr. Stuart Donaldson has actually brought the idea with an expansion of this particular model. Now, in his own paper, and Stuart Donaldson, this point he raised whether PARMA was a model for research or is a framework. Now, the idea that uh, Martin Seligman said that PARMA is a robust framework. Is not a model, because a framework means when there are logical structure of meaning around variables. So positive emotion, engagement, relationship, meaningfulness, all these achievements, all these are meaningful variable, and there is a logical continuity in these variables. But when it comes to empirical research, there is some kind of limitations in this model, because how the variables are related and why the variables are related, they are equally important in development of the theory. So from a scientific framework or a conceptual framework that led us to develop a construct, identify the variables, today we know with the work of PARMA that how empirical research can actually be conducted. That is how these variables are related, whether these relationship are orthogonal to each other, like in factor analysis we do, try to understand these five pillars of PARMA, they are orthogonal to each other, or there is some kind of overlap. When we understand these empirical ideas, get these empirical ideas, then only probably we'll finally come up with a theory that why they are related. And that factorial validity is yet to establish over a series of research. And that's why Stuart Donaldson has decided to expand this framework into an organizational context. As I could understand, because Stuart himself is present in this talk, I should not have the courage to talk about what he really intended to. What I understood is that the framework he wanted to expand it to a context, because unless the context is understood, unless, and in his terms, the context is the organizational context, the effectiveness of this model in the organization. So from that perspective, his work has been a brilliant work, and he actually extended it to 4 more pillars in the overall ideation of PARMA. So he came out with the idea that the resources, by physical health, of course, he means, as I understand, resources, the psychological resources, physical resources, social resources, functional resources. So what kind of resources we have, that's important for developing or flourishing in a particular situation. The work environment is also very important, because his primary focus has been organizational effectiveness and understanding the model for that effectiveness. So he talked about work environment, and then he talked about a mindset. That is why fixed mindset leads to some kind of deficiency in our thought, and why growth mindset gives us some kind of efficiency in our thought process, why it fuels motivation and perseverance. And then, of course, economic security. And the economic security is fundamental, because if we go by the work of Daniel Kahneman, he also talked about, apart from what Abraham Maslow said, the Daniel Kahneman also said money cannot buy happiness, but money is very important. Not having money does not make you sad, but there is a threshold, and that threshold is the minimum baseline that one should have. And he talked about $75,000 per year in US, the point of time when he conducted study in 2004. So these 4 elements today we understand as PARMA 4+4 as a framework for scientific research. I'm not going into further detail of it, because I have to talk about other talks as well. So anybody who is interested should consult his fundamental work, Stuart Donaldson's fundamental work, which is actually presented in Frontiers in Psychology. Now then, this was my second talk. My talk was slightly a departure from the original idea of positive psychology. We actually tried to focus in Rekhi Foundation as science of happiness. So since we were starting afresh with a slightly different kind of thoughts, I thought we should sorry, we should raise more questions than rather than giving answers. And the talk that I had, I actually had three different kinds of issues. I raised a ontological question, that is there something called happiness? If you go by a biological vertical, there is no area in the brain we could find that it's meant for happiness. There's no network we could find. There is no localized area we could find. And there is no region in the brain, that is left brain or right brain, we could find. A lot of researchers have come up with the right brain and happiness, but it actually inconclusive. Many people have started even saying that happiness probably is related to your left brain speech area, because happiness only gives you some degree of communicability. So the ontological question that I had is, does happiness really exist? Is it innate to us, or we nurture it over a period of time? Is it biological or behavioral, or is it a process or a outcome? These were the fundamental ontological question we had about origin. But then when we decided that, well, yes, it can be studied, we thought of doing some kind of epistemological question. That yes, if happiness exists, does it exist in memory or in moment? Now, this question also raised by Daniel Kahneman as well, that whether it exists in memory or memory. Is it about affluence or autonomy? I may be having a lot of money, but I still may not be happy because I cannot make use of it. So when I can freely make use of it, that could be autonomy. I may have less money, but more autonomy, or I can have more money, less autonomy. What actually gives us more happiness? Volunteering or reward? What kind of work gives us more happiness? Is it the comfort or the challenge? When we get a challenge that we become happy, or when we remain in the comfort zone that gives us more happiness? So these are the epistemological question, because without this epistemological question, we cannot raise a methodological question. In my last slide, of course, I'll be talking about some methodological question, but the questions are, is happiness best suited as a social science, natural science, or a transdisciplinary science? Is it experiential science or an experimental science? Now, here lies the beginning of the foundation of Reiki centers all across the world, because we believe that it's more a transdisciplinary science. By transdisciplinarity, I often say this, it's different from interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity. Multidisciplinarity means when we try to share our finding with other disciplines, it becomes multidisciplinary. By interdisciplinarity, we mean we not only share our finding, we also share our methodologies of different sciences, that it becomes interdisciplinary. But when we talk about transdisciplinary science, it's a science which is problem focused, which is solution oriented, and it creates its own methodology. So I talked more about a transdisciplinary science, how the new science of happiness could be developed. And then, of course, I talked about it's a transcultural phenomenon, because I have long engagements with Paul Ekman, Carol Izard, those who fundamentally worked on all kinds of emotions like happy, sad, fear, anger, surprise, disgust, kind of basic emotions. And I had the opportunity, in fact, I worked with Carol Izard in Delaware for a long time. And I understand that is a transcultural phenomenon as well. Therefore, we need to understand it slightly differently. And it's a translational domain. Why it is a translational domain? Because the learning that we get from these sciences can be translated into practice. So we try to promote the science of happiness as a transdisciplinary science, a transcultural phenomenon, and a translational domain. Am I clearly audible to all of you?
यस सर
इनका तो
Yes, sir,
चेंज हो
you're
गया
audible.
था सबका लिटरेचर इलेक्टिव है
I think somebody's okay. I thought my voice was not clear. Anyway, so the next point that I had, even Donaldson also talked about it. It's a context-based subject matter. Unless we understand the context behind it, probably this science would not be understood. In fact, we have been trying to develop the syllabus here in Science of Happiness, which is context intensive, content limited, and intent driven. So the idea behind having this science is to develop it as a context-based subject matter and a coping style-based orientation. And by coping style orientation, we mean that is different from lifestyle orientation, that how we cope with an environment. Like Donaldson also talked about the growth mindset is a belief system ingrained which Martin Seligman's laboratory works on that primal belief, that is original belief with which we actually start coping with the environment. Then it's an exploratory science as well as an explanatory science, because we believe that lot many things have been explored, because 98% of the researches are done on sad, fear, anger, surprise, disgust, not on happiness. So we need to explore a lot of things about happiness. And since we can understand it as a variable and identify the variable, we can also explain it through scientific literature or scientific studies. We don't just want to tell people that it what happiness means and how one should be happy. That kind of art of happiness is also important probably, but we are not into that game. And finally, I said that it's a choice-based commitment, it's a self-driven engagement. The idea is once again going back to flourishing our happiness, finding meaning and purpose. Two of the volumes we have come up very recently, and anybody interested can actually look into it. Then I'll switch on to once again the talks. The third talk was by Shahida Smiti on love, and that's what was the third lecture. And in the third lecture, Saida Atmeti actually wonderful talk actually. She is a Templeton Foundation fellow. She talked about the theories of emotion. I'll not go into great detail because the theories of emotion comes from basic emotion theory of Paul Ekman, happy, sad, fear, anger, surprise, disgust, appraisal theory, a social constructivist theory, and she built her own theoretical position on broaden and build theories by Frederickson. Now, her talk was primarily focused that happiness is just one part of positive emotions. She feels that there are a host of positive emotions based on which we can construct our thought process. And she picked up love, which actually will explain the broaden and build theory by Frederickson in a better way. So her theoretical position started with broaden and build theories. So she said that we all believe that probably love is only experiential, but she is probably the first to tell that yes, it can be objectively measured. I mean, through a baseline, how loved one feels, through its variability, how much it shifts, and inertia, how quickly it returns to baseline. She believes that when your baseline is higher and when your inertia, if you can quickly return to the baseline, I mean, it somehow matches to the idea of the set point theory of Sonia Libremaski, who says that there is a set point for all of us, and that set point is the baseline. If we can quickly return to the baseline, we are certainly a happier person. So her longitudinal study, she did empirical evidence on research on love through Templeton Foundation work that felt love lasts longer, felt love. And she also talked about expressed love varies culturally. That's what I also had number of research papers in the area of how our expressed love differs, because expressed love differs because of the display rules. In some culture, expressed love is de-intensified. In some culture, it is intensified. Some culture, it is neutralized. Some culture, it is masked. I mean, one of the Ph.D. scholars of Paul Ekman, who is once again the father of emotion research, David Matsumoto actually talked about these different kinds of display rules across the culture and why do they differ. And my own contribution in this particular set of research is that we found that the two sides of the face do not express happiness or love equally. It is it is your left side of the face, which is actually a private face. The happiness is much better understood in the left side of the face rather than on the right side of the face. So what I did, I used a composite face. I took a photograph of love or expressed happiness. I actually mirror reversed it and then vertically cut it to join the left face and right face, and then tried to make a comparison between the two different sides of the face, which side of the face is actually expressing more love or happiness. And we found that there are very little cultural difference in the left side of the face. Probably there is a direct connection with contralateral side of the brain, that the right side of the face, right side of the brain actually controls the left side of the face, and innate expressions always come through the left side of the face or in our private face. The public face is always the right face, which we can actually control, which is under voluntary control. So I find a lot of semblance with my some researchers with her research, which suggests that expressed love varies culturally, but the felt love remains uh, uh, remains universal and it lasts longer. Then the work of uh, Viktor Frankl I'll be talking about. This talk was presented by Kendall C. Bronk, and such a wonderful. I never knew this this work. Sorry about it. I never knew this work. It's just a wonderful thought to present it in this series. Actually, before what Kendall Bronk is presented, the audience has to understand who is Viktor Frankl. He was actually an inmate in the Nazi concentration camp in World War II, and he remained there. And as a psychologist, this is his book actually, A Psychologist's Experience at the Concentration Camp. The book came in 1946, and he observed that those who survived better has a purpose in life, and the survival has a purpose. People can develop the purpose in life even through imagination. So that part was beautifully explained by Kendall C. Brown. She actually identified the stories of the importance of purpose, Viktor Frankl's story of importance of purpose for survival and thrive. So this is the, concentration camp. And in this camp, what Frankl has found that, well, those who can find a purpose even in that situation, they survive better. He, in fact, in his book, I had gone into slightly into that text as well. He talked about two kinds of people, decent people and indecent people. He found that even the Nazi soldier at times were very decent. Some soldiers were very decent. And the prisoners in the concentration camp were also indecent. That is, some Nazi soldiers gave a lot of support to the prisoners. They are very decent. And some prisoners who are otherwise supposed to be decent were indecent because they tried to grab food or they tried to do something for themselves at the cost of others. So I think it's a great book for all of us to study in terms of the purpose of purpose, and the famous sentence he mentioned, the purpose can be found in multiple ways and it can be developed, just not be discovered. So it fits to our original idea that happiness, flourishing is something which needs to be nurtured, nourished, rather than it comes with our own. And how it can be evolved? It can be evolved through reflection, trying to do new activities, through new adjustments. So that's the work Ken Bronk actually presented about the power of purpose. Then, of course, I'll come to vitality. The next talk with Jamie Shapiro has presented, and vitality is also a very important concept. And she actually talked about leader-follower vitality. And vitality is a very important concept because this concept is found all over the world. In China, it is called Chi. In Japan, it is called Ki. In Indonesia, it is called Bayu. In India, it is called Prana. The vitality as a concept. So she actually talked about time and energy. She said that time is non-renewable, but one can renew vitality. So It's a renewable resource. It's an inner resource that is available to self, that includes physical energy, psychological energy, and emotional energy. So anybody who is interested with Donaldson, this work 2022, it is there. And the book also is brilliant, is also available. People must go through, those who are interested in utilizing this construct of vitality for the context, particularly the industrial or the organizational context. So she talked about that vitality is both generative and dynamic and can help leaders cope with the challenges and improve overall performance. So leaders can utilize vitality to manage or employ inner resources. Most of us try to manage time, but she talked about vitality. It should be managed through intentional behaviors. It should be managed through certain methods, which she talked about in great detail. And I would not like to elaborate at this point of time because I have got three more talks to be presented before you. Then will come about flow state. That is the sixth talk was on flow state. Now there are two talks on flow state. One by Jane Nakamura, she talked about flow state, and Matt Dubin also he talked about flow state. There are two different approaches, but both talking about the same thing. But somebody who is not aware of the flow state as a concept, I thought let me give some idea about what flow state is all about. The flow is melting together of action and consciousness in which the person is completely immersed on a zone of optimal functioning. So let me tell you that each one of us have some kind of experience of flow state. But let us remember that we cannot sustain this flow state for certain reasons. And why? Because we are actually, that's what Matt Dubin said, that our flow state gets heavier simply because of a lot of intrusion effect, a lot of interferences in our thought process. So the challenge for our flow state is that how to maintain that optimality through a process of temporality. How long I can maintain this temporality. Now, a sprinter in a Olympics, who wins the 100-meter race, cannot continue it over a period of time because there are several reasons for that. Now, in order to develop that kind of capability, one has to understand that the optimal state can be temporarily sustained over a period of time. And how? And that sustainability depends on what kind of synchronicity you have, what kind of resources you have. The resources come from clear goals, autonomy, balanced between power, perceived challenges and skill, and emotional resources. So psychological resources, physical resources, biological resources, all kind of resources, when they become synchronous, it's possible to maintain that temporality. And then if that temporality is achieved and automatic and synchronicity is achieved, finally we can develop some kind of automaticity. Automaticity means I do not have to drag myself in order to reach up to the level of flow state. So flow state is a state where we actually melt action and consciousness. We are completely immersed in a zone of optimal functioning. Like the photograph that you see, the person is completely immersed in that. And we lose sense of time, self-consciousness, and get an experience which is intrinsically very rewarding. So if we have got a lot of flow state experience in our life, we become very happy, which is referred to as autotelic experience. Autotelic experience is a process experience. What Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi has mentioned about autotelic experience, that you develop happiness in the process. But there are certain, he talked about exotelic experience as well. Exotelic experience people, those who want to have that, they somehow want to achieve the target or outcome, get the outcome at any cost, and they don't derive the process. Now, what gives us happiness is actually the orotelic experience, that I develop a flow state and I enjoy the process. That's why happiness and flourishing always considered to be a process, just not a target. It's a journey, just not a destination. So Jen Nakamura actually had talked about this, giving reference to artists, giving reference to musicians, and she talked about how it can be started. It can be started through self-report observation, through neuropsychological, neurophysiological methods, and it can be cultivated by removing barrier, optimizing possible catalyst, and pursuing activities which are source of flow. So you have to find out what are our source of flow in the context. So that careful watch and observation about what can actually interest me, what can actually give me flow, that needs to be understood. Most of the time we fail to do that. And if the flow state is there, creativity, performance, learning, job satisfaction, positive effect, all will come as a follow-up, as a process. And here the work of Matt Dewin, he actually talked about that why do we lose? He talked about time confetti. Actually, concept is a wonderful concept that in a flow, our attention is never divided. Now we don't do multiple things at one go. Why our flow state cannot be maintained? Because we always get some kind of intrusion effect, and we have to attend to multiple things at one go. And since we attend to multiple things at one go, we fail to achieve that flow state. Now he talked about a neuropsychological concept as well, which is hypofrontality. The hypofrontality concept fits very well with some of our studies as well. It says that your control on the executive area of the brain, which is prefrontal cortex, particularly the ventromedial area of the prefrontal cortex, that control goes away from frontal lobe. Look, in a day we get about 40,000 thoughts, and roughly 96% of our thoughts are repeat thoughts. And that actually fatigues our frontal lobe. And therefore, what really happens when we try to attend to something, we get distracted simply because of the fact that most of our thoughts are repeat thoughts. And out of 40,000 thoughts, we actually can concentrate in less than 10% of the thoughts. So we fail to do that because we are actually having difficulty in avoiding the, 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 the different intrusion effect into our brain. So somebody who gets the flow, they have got transient hypofrontality. That is a deactivation of the frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex, which is actually ventromedial area of the prefrontal cortex. And if you can deactivate that, your executive function will not attend to what is happening around you, and you would be able to switch this activity going more towards the parietal lobe of the brain, which actually helps you develop that, that consolidation of the thought process. Now, this hypofrontality is different from hyperfocus. You may be seeing two photographs. Now, the top one is actually basically transient hypofrontality. This is a process through which meditation also is done, and this is the process through which people develop flow. But we also see mobile phone over a period of time. We don't know what is happening around us, and we spend 6 to 7 hours. The world statistics says that we roughly spend 6.5 hours in a day on mobile phone. Is that also transient hyperfrontality? No, it is hyperfocus. And the hyperfocus actually creates attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Very nicely spoken by Matt Dovin. And I think there are a lot of good empirical researches one can do through neuropsychological perspective and through psychological perspective of flow. So the flow is a contagious process. It can be spread within the group. He talked about how shared goal, close listening, clear rules, and engagement. I have my personal experience also about it. If the flow is introduced in a group, which is not through brainstorming, it's through brain swarming. If it can be done, then people start developing collective whispering. Nobody talks to anybody, but everybody encourages others' thought. Now, that collective whispering is possible only when a flow in a team can be introduced. I think it's a wonderful concept, and this concept should go beyond the theoretical research and engage people into the other kind of researchers. And finally, we have got the work by Jennifer. I just had a word with her, so nice to meet her, of course, online. Her work was on psychological capital, which Stuart Turlson also mentioned in his own meta-analytical paper. I have just shown it to you in the first couple of slides. He talked about that if the negative experience and positive experience both come with the same intensity, we always focus on negative things because our brain is negatively biased. And why our brain is negatively biased? The simple reason is that our brain is meant to keep us safe. So flight are the original ways we actually try to keep ourselves safe. So our brain is actually having that problem. We have a negativity bias. So we have a mindset. A lot of people say that, oh, happiness, flourishing, it's a choice. Now, my question is, if it is a choice, why 90% of the people in the world, they are unhappy? It's not a choice and it's not a compulsion as well. Why it is not a compulsion? Because if we chase it, we'll never become happy. So where lies the happiness? That was my epistemological question. Is it a choice or is it a compulsion? Now, it is neither a choice nor a compulsion. It needs to be nurtured. So her work primarily says that it can be nurtured the way we experience the world around us. And she talked about the belief system. Now, belief is something which is extremely important. And I often refer about the book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief, who says that belief is a filter between what you see and how you see. Which gene in you is going to be activated, which protein expression is going to take place depends on how you see it rather than what you see it. So it's your belief which guides you how you see it. And that belief is actually a mindset. One can have a positive mindset, one can have a negative mindset. So in the laboratory of Martin Seligman, there is one person who has been all through working on this area of primal mindset or primal belief. The question they ask, two simple questions they ask, whether this world is a secure place or insecure place, whether the world is good or world is bad. Believe me, 82% says that it's an insecure place, the world is bad. Now it's a mindset issue. Why 18% says that no, the world is good as well, the world is a secure place as well? So all this depends on how you cultivate your psychological capital. Once again, remember the word cultivate. I have been often telling you that it needs to be nurtured. It doesn't come with us as a bank guarantee, that we do not get happiness, we do not get PsyCap as a guarantee. We have the raw material with us, but we need to fulfill it as a finished product. And for that, she talked about hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. I do not want to go into the great detail of it because PsyCap has been a concept we have been understanding it in organizational behavior for quite some time. But the beauty of her work is that she actually amalgamated this concept with positive psychological concept in such a wonderful manner that we understand today how it actually can be nurtured. So these are the 8 talks we had. I'm a little fast because for the brevity of time, because I wanted to spend some time for discussion as well. Now, these are the 8 talks. But remember, in one of the papers by Stuart Danielson itself and some more papers that I have actually looked into, there are a lot of criticism about positive psychology, a lot of criticism. And the criticism runs like this, that we have a self-serving illusion that human beings are more good than bad. Actually, we human beings, there are a lot of negativities, more negativities than positivities. So it's a self-serving illusion that it's only human beings are always good. It blocks our view about half of the human nature. If not half, it is, I presume it is 75%. It blocks our human nature. Do we try to tarnish, do we try to change the idea behind what human nature is all about, how the brain has evolved, how the evolution took place? And do we have happiness as a process of evolution? I have gone through several evolutionary works. In fact, one thing that impressed me is, of course, what Syed Ahmadi also talked about, and the work by, uh, I mean, the original works. They say that the happiness, even for broaden build theory also, that happiness actually broadens our thought process. It's more about a insight and orientation rather than just about a feeling. So it can be nurtured. There is a grand purpose for developing this positive feeling. And the purpose is to enhance our mental aperture. The purpose is to develop insight, orientation, and some kind of achievement, meaning, and purpose. And that uh, needs to be understood, that it should not block that view. And it has got a reductionist approach to measurement, because measurement is not too at a micro level. It's a macro level understanding of research. In the last slide I'll talk about it. There are correlational studies only. Very few experimental studies are done on happiness research. Very few, very few. Mostly they are correlational. Now, all correlational researchers talk about exploration, not on explanation. There is a fundamental difference between exploratory study and explanatory study. If we have to conduct an exploratory study, correlational findings are enough. But if we have to do an explanatory study, we have to see the cause effect relationship. We have to manipulate the independent variable in order to understand the dependent variable. So the causality is never known in correlational finding. And then if there are unexpected findings, they are vigorously defended. In fact, carefully careless about it. If there is a if there is a finding which goes against our theoretical idea, we become carefully careless about it. So it's called confirmation bias. And finally, is decontextualized and neoliberalized ideology. That is, the 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 context is not given. Today the entire world, we are seeing how many wars are going on. I mean, if we try to see without the context, probably we will not understand what flourishing, human flourishing, and science of happiness is all about. So it's a neoliberalized idea. That is, well, everything happens as life choices. Choices will give us everything. But choice also creates cognitive load. We don't understand choice gives us more cognitive load, and decision making becomes crippled. So if we have got more cognitive load on our choices, and if we always think about what is the best thing in life, we'll forget about what is good thing about life and what is right thing about life. So we can have good choices, we can have right choices, we can have best choices. If we always go by the consequences of life choices, then it will only put more and more cognitive load on our thought process. Finally, in two more slides, I'll be talking about, I'll take 5 more minutes, is about happiness and flourishing. Now, through all these 8 lectures, in fact, 7 lectures, we have heard about flourishing. And in one lecture, in one talk from myself, we heard about happiness. Let us try to understand how they are different. Now, happiness is a multidisciplinary concept that I wanted to promote. And flourishing is a multi-dimensional concept that we wanted to promote. What do we mean by multidimensionality and multidisciplinarity? Multidisciplinarity means that science of happiness does not depend on psychology. I mean, in fact, I am teaching in a engineering institute. I'm also teaching in medical sciences and the science of happiness only. And in medical sciences, we often say that, well, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Why? Why some people have pain, but they don't suffer? And in engineering institute also, we talk about happiness, deriving all principles of engineering and telling that how such disciplines can also fortify the strength of happiness. So when we talk about a happiness, it is about a positive feeling, state of feeling, which is naturally transient. It does not stay for long. One cannot remain happy. If someone is happy all the time, he is going to or she is going to die. It's a dynamic, a fleeting experience and difficult to hold on to. You can't, if you are happy today, you would be unhappy tomorrow with the same novel experience. It broadens our cognitive abilities. It helps us develop more insight, attention, memory, and it's a multidisciplinary concept. Involvement of different fields of study of the construct of well-being. But when we come for flourishing, it's a sustainable form of well-being. It's not transient. You can sustain it over a period of time. It's possible without even happiness. Somebody is flourishing, even without happiness is possible. And that happens. Why people go for rock climbing? Why people do something of that sort which does not give them an instant happiness? In fact, they never fall into a pleasure trap. Somebody who is flourishing will never go into the pleasure trap, and it's a form of well-being for building skills to adopt. So flourishing is a construct through which we can build more and more skill to adapt with the changing environment. Therefore, it's more a multi-dimensional concept, the quality of having many different features in the construct of well-being. So we talked about Permapolar 4, talked about love, we talked about flow, we talked about purpose of meaning, we talked about vitality, we talked about PsyCap. They are all multi-dimensional features of the concept of flourishing. So that's the idea stitching I wanted to do. And the idea is not to tell that in which way happiness is different from flourishing. Probably there is more overlap than some degree of orthogonality. But what Zaida Smithy has said, that positive psychology is just not about happiness. That's also equally true. That is just not about happiness. Now, happiness as a science, our aim is to develop it as a construct. And the construct, when we understand it as a construct, we need to develop, we need to understand what are the variables underlying and how we can measure it, not through correlational process, also through causality. So the challenge is today, tomorrow, we have how we can do research. And the research is a unique problem here. Suppose if I, either in flourishing or in happiness, we talk about, the question is happiness or flourishing an introspective investigation of happy mind or a scientific investigation of mind in happiness or flourishing? That's the question. How do we study it? Through a first person methodology, through a qualitative process altogether, or through a third person methodology, through objective understanding by a third person who is trying to study? So the question is whether it is a private knowledge or a manifest behavior. A lot of people may be happy, they may not express happiness. A lot of people express happiness, but they camouflage their happiness. Is it a subjective experience or objective reality? Is it exploratory science or is it explanatory science? Is it experiential science or is it an empirical science? Is it a qualitative method that we should follow? Is it a quantitative method we should follow? Lot of people say that, well, we should follow a mixed method, and depending upon the kind of context, kind of content, kind of intent we are interested in studying, we can adhere to a methodology. Probably that's true. And with that note, I would like to end my talk here and wish you a very happy Diwali to all of you, because 3 days from now, we are going to have a festival of lights. It's all about happiness. It's all about happiness. And that's called a festival of lights and happiness in India. Thank you so much for giving a patient listening to me. I finished it in 1 hour. I am ready to answer any question. Not that I would be able to answer everything, but whatever little I have said, if you have got any way to criticize it, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful insights. I think it has been summed up so well, and there is applause everywhere. So I think that says a lot.
Thank you.
It's not only about summing it up, but like you rightly said, you have actually added very relevant insights to all of these concepts and helped us revise and go through these again so that we can implement it. And there's a lot of food for thought. So we will take some time to process it. We can take some question and answer questions from the audience now.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Professor Stewart. We can have your question.
Thank you. And I agree with you 100%. This was really outstanding and made me think a lot, about many of the things I've read and the things we've talked about. I wanted to just highlight a couple of things that I think are really key for us to take away and then ask you a question. happiness and flourishing, I take your point being are not things to find or, to discover when you get rich, but things we can cultivate and nurture on a regular basis, which that's what all the science I've looked at suggests as well. You can also cultivate and nurture anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. So I think that's an argument for, it's up to us, free will and interventions and applications of everything we've talked about. We can improve our lives in this way. The thing that I'm trying to understand is a lot of the work I've been doing is in different cultures. Latest, I've been doing a lot in China, and we're doing work in Japan, but in working with many of you, I have been a little surprised on how similar our thinking is on a lot of these dimensions. Seems like we're all trained and valuing the scientific method. Many of you are already doing research on a lot of the concepts we've talked about, and your questions show, deep understanding of multidisciplinarity and positive psych and so forth. So my question is, what do you see as the main differences between sort of, your studies in the US and the readings from the US and how, these things play out in India and how you, think about them in your, cultures?
Okay. I think very valid question. I mean, there are three concepts we try to nurture in terms of happiness. One is called affluence, one is called autonomy, one is called appreciation. We generally have three pillars. By affluence, we mean what kind of resources you have. You also spoke about the same thing, affluence. What kind of emotional, physical, economic, ecological, economic resources you do have. But our next pillar comes in autonomy, that you may have resources, but you do not have the autonomy to make use of it. Okay. So the idea is that if I have got the autonomy with whatever little I have, probably some people become happy by autonomy. India is a country where autonomy is preferred much more. And that's why the reason, because of course it is a developing society, but not having money does not make them sad. Okay, so what really brings in India, in Southeast Asia, I will not talk about India per se, I'll talk about Southeast Asia, the idea of appreciation for life. You do not have you do not have affluence, you do not have autonomy, but people still appreciate life. They say that, well, we got a life and we enjoy it. And they say that we get death only once, but we get life every morning. We get death once, but we get life every morning. So they appreciate life, and they do not have affluence, and they do not have autonomy. So I think the three pillars of affluence, because if you go by World Happiness Index, is more about standard of living, more about perception of corruption, is more about your, survival or mortality rate. Those concepts are there. One concept which is not there in that World Happiness Index is relationship. You also mentioned about it. The relationship is the fundamental fabric behind all kinds of happiness in India, because through relationship we understand that sacrifice gives us more happiness as compared to gain. So we value more on negotiable fate rather than personal control. So when you talk about personal control, what is that I have in my deposit? But when we talk about negotiable fate, that even if I don't have, the God will give it to me. I do not have to worry for everything. Well, that does not flourish the human being in their standard of living. But in a condition or the context where 1.4 4-5 billion people live, I mean, they also live effectively. And for the past 6,000 years, people have been living in a given context with a given thought. And the thought is that you should gain more happiness through sacrifice. Yeah, you should get more happiness through sacrifice rather than gain. You should believe in negotiable fate. That is, your locus of control is not within, it's outside, rather than on personal control. So that's there lies the cultural difference between the West versus East. But let us not try to make too much of comparison between these two. The idea is that we have some pan-cultural way of finding happiness. So therefore, the generality of what Christopher Peterson also said, that there are certain generic concepts of happiness. We must also identify them. And then we should understand the pan-cultural, the cross-cultural, the issues as well, the pan-cultural issues as well, that in which culture what makes people more happy. That's why I often say World Happiness Index is a tragedy to human happiness, because you have branded a set of countries, those who are otherwise happy. If I ask someone in India, are you happy? You will say, are you mad? So this answer I get. So the question is, people don't feel unhappiness because of their lack of living standard, lack of economy, lack of resources. They still find relationship as the fundamental fabric of their happiness. That's the cultural difference.
Thank you. That's phenomenal. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I would like to ask Manaza.
Please.
It's actually, it was all the dots were well connected. During this program, actually, we had these 8 sessions where we had a lot of information. But I think, this concluding session connected the dots. It was, I think, as Ria also mentioned, it was like a revision for all of us. Sir, I was just trying to, connect it to a book that you have published, Side Bias.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
all I was trying to figure it out was when you said one portion of the face is the public face and the other one is something which is very private to us.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have anything to do with the activity? Like, if I'm more, if my left hand is more active than my right hand,
Mm-hmm.
still the fundamentals remain the same, or my public face would still be the right or not the left, and vice versa?
Well, this is where the concept of complementarity comes. In one side of the body must be protected, and one side of the body must be able to undertake the activity. That's why the sword is always at the right hand, the shield is always at the left hand. That's why mothers always cradle the babies with the left hand, because the left hand, the mother can protect the baby much better. And not only that, the baby also gets a mother's heartbeat, which the baby used to get in mother's womb. So there is a natural way of developing complementarity in our side bias. The two sides of the body are actually complementary to each other. The strength in right is the weakness in left, and the strength in left is the weakness in the right. So I have got two books actually, with one with Dr. Tanusri Datta and one with by myself. Is one in Delaware University. I did it actually. This idea was that how the two sides of the body complement each other. The brain also complements with each other. The left side of the face, the left side of your face, which is your private face, cannot be noticed by people who are interacting with you, because all our scanning bias starts with the left side. That is, they will see your right face first. And if they see your right face first, they get the first impression of your happiness through the public face, not through the private face. So even if you are depressed, it is not noticed by someone who want to be happy through interaction. So a lot of in neurology journals, I have published a lot of researches on that. If you are interested, I'll send you all these articles.
Sure, sir. Please. Thank you.
Before we close, this series, can we have a picture? We have some of our esteemed speakers also here, Professor Jennifer, Professor Stewart. Before I give a official vote of thanks, I would like you all to please turn on your cameras, and Ishmeet can take a picture.
I forgot to mention this presentation I made with Ishmeet. Actually, I wrote it in my first slide, her name as well, because she gave me the cream of the most of the talks, and then I tried to idea stitch it.
Okay. Thank you for that, sir. I think Ishmeet got disconnected. I'll just take a picture. So it's a happiness class. Please request you all to smile.
Mm.
Just a second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
So I would
everybody.
like to now thank Professor Mandal for his words, for his time and all the effort in summarizing all these talks. It has been really a privilege to attend this session. And also, I would like to thank all our other speakers who have been a part of this series, who have enriched us in multiple ways, have given us so much to ponder upon. So I would like to thank everyone, also the audience who has been very cooperative and has shown so much patience and has raised very good questions for all of us to learn from. And above all, I would like to thank Dr. Rekhi for his support, and without whom this series would not have been possible, and Dr. Stewart for being so cooperative and so supportive, and always open, even at this time of the day, for all the US participants. They have been very, I don't have words now, so I'm falling short of words. It's been a great experience, all in all. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
And
Dr.
thanks
Ria,
to
may
Dr.
I
Ria
share?
also for coordinating this all things so well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Ria,
I
may
look
I
forward to
share?
more such series.
Yes, we are looking forward to.
We
Thank you
all
so
are.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mandal sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Manas.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
We'll meet again.
Yes.